Hello, this is Mark from Productive Computing and Productive Computing University. You are about to watch a selected JSON lesson from our free course called JSON Fundamentals for FileMaker Developers. Knowing how to create, parse, and manipulate JSON is essential in order to integrate FileMaker with the world of APIs, Claris Connect, artificial intelligence, and more. In this complete course, we'll cover everything you need to know about JSON from the perspective of a Claris FileMaker Pro developer. We're making this course available for free because we feel it's an important and essential building block for you to understand in order to advance your skills to the next level. And once you learn how to manipulate JSON formatted text, you are that much closer to accomplishing your first API integration in your own FileMaker apps. And like all our other courses at Productive Computing University, this course comes complete with downloadable FileMaker files for you to use and follow along with. These downloadable files are available directly in selected lessons inside the course. There's a link in the description to enroll in this free course called JSON Fundamentals for FileMaker Developers at productivecomputinguniversity.com. Okay, now let's dive into the lesson. Okay, we're now in part 2 where we parse our customer list. And we will learn a lot of preliminary things here. We'll get a basic script started and a basic structure defined, which we can use as a partial model for Part 3 and 4, Part 3 being the invoice parsing and Part 4 being the invoice line item parsing. Okay, let's go into script workspace and create our first script. We'll call this parseJSON. Okay. Now, the first thing we want to do is get the JSON into a global variable. This makes it infinitely easier to work with, and it also makes it readily available in the data viewer. It's just a really good way to do it, I think. You could technically work from the global field directly. That would be no problem, but there's something about putting it in a global variable that just seems familiar and the correct way to do it. So set variable, and we will grab that variable. We'll name it JSON. $2 here so that it's persistent and lasts inside while the script is running and outside when it's not. Again, makes it easier and convenient if you need to analyze the JSON in the data viewer for whatever reason. So we'll specify this now, and of course we have that in the preferences table. It's a global field, which means I don't need a relationship to it, and I can just simply grab the JSON. Push OK, save the script, and run debugger, and let's do this quick test to see if that worked. Open up data viewer, and sure enough, now our global variable, $JSON, has all our JSON. Okay, next we are ready to start designing our script. Okay, and we'll put a quick comment here. All right, now we're going to work with customers. Now we'll need a loop. There's no doubt about that because we have multiple customers. We're going to need a loop. We'll be creating a new record for every customer. So like with any script, we want to determine how many times we need to loop. The best way to do this, I think, is to get the total item count for customers, or total customer count. We actually have built-in tools for that to make it easy. I'll put that in a variable. So we'll set a variable. And the name of this variable will be $, a single $sign, because we want it to expire after the script is run. And this will be a small c with the word total. That way we know it's customer total. And we need to now parse this array of customers and count it. So for that, we're going to do a value count. That's a function that allows us to count the number of iterations. Let me pause there for a second, and let's head into the data viewer, and we'll build this first parsing function in the data viewer so that we have some flexibility. I'll go to the watch window and we'll create a new expression. And we want to simply get the keys, the number of keys, or the list of keys of customers. So how do we do that? So we'll use the function called JSON list keys. That will give us all the IDs for every customer. So we want it to look at our JSON. And what is the path? The path will simply be customers. And that is our key for customers. Now, it's zero-based, so there are 5 records here, even though that starts with 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 records. And that's it. So then how do I get the number 5? That's where the value count comes in. We'll put the value count function on top of this, and there is our total number of customers. It's as simple as that. Okay. Now that we've got our total customers, we need to put that in here. So let me just paste this formula here like this so that we have it. So now that we have our total, we can now make an exit loop script step, or at least begin to think about that. So we'll exit loop if C total equals C. Now we haven't defined C yet, but we're about to. C will be our internal counter to count the customer number that we're on. It'll be that simple. So to do that, it will be a set variable. And first we want to set that variable C, which stands for customer, to 0, because we have to start this whole process with 0 being our first key. That's just the way JSON works. Ideally, it would be great if we could start at 1, but JSON starts at 0, so that means we have to put a little bit more thinking into this and calibrate it in such a way that it still works. So there's our 0. Now I can duplicate this script step and iterate, and then we'll add 1 to this right here, C plus 1. So within the loop, we want to make sure that we go to the right layout before we create a record. So we'll go to Layout, Contacts, and then we'll create a new record. Now we have a new customer record in the wings, and we can start parsing data. So we'll do a set field, and we'll target the customer field. Customer ID is a good one to start with. And let's figure out how we're going to parse that. So the customer ID is right here. It's basically the first record in the array. This left straight bracket represents an array, and this would be the first record, which would be key index 0. And we can use a JSON function for that. So I'll just type in JSON get element, which we've been working with quite a bit already, and $JSON, that's the JSON we're looking at. What's the path going to be? It's going to be customers. That gets us started, but it's also customer ID, and because we've stumbled upon an array, we have to give it an index amount. So I'm going to do this left bracket, and then I'm going to put a quote here because we need something that varies over time, and I'll combine that with our variable called C. That's this variable here, which currently is 0 by the time it gets to this loop the first time. So customer index 0, and then we combine that with the closing bracket, and then we can actually put a dot here, which represents something in the array. And now we identify the field we want to pull, and this will be customer ID, spelled correctly. And we'll close this here like so. So that'll pull the customer ID from the first index. And again, this keeps iterating, so it'll be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll get all those customer IDs one at a time within this loop. Next, we have the name field. So we've duplicated this. This time we'll target the name, and all we have to do at this point is just change the field name, which is going to be name. Okay, let's put this to the test. We've got no records in the contacts, and we will run this through debugger and begin. Grab our JSON. We get the total count, which should be perfect here, 5. It is. Let's check it over here. Here it is. C total is 5. Our C initial value is 0. That's our key for which customer we're dealing with. We go to the layout, we create a new record, and we parse our first field. We have success. We've got customer ID 1, which is right here. Next, we'll pull John Doe, which is the name right here. Now here's where it gets interesting. We have to make sure we've done a good job. C goes to 1, and C plus 1 is not equal to C total, which is 5. We're nowhere near ready to exit this loop. So we go back to the beginning, and we go to layout again. Now you might be asking yourself, why does he put the go to layout script step inside the loop? Shouldn't that be above the loop so you don't, in a sense, cause a redundant situation? Why do you You're already on the layout. Why do you need to go to it again? I would agree with you 100% with that theory, and normally I do put layout script steps well above the loop. But in this case, our loop is going to be much more advanced. We're going to have a loop that goes to invoices and then goes to invoices line items. So before we even exit the loop, we're already dancing around at other layouts. So you actually have to define the layout each and every time you start this loop again, because it's gone through all kinds of iterations in various tables, invoices and invoices line items to be specific. By the time it finally gets back here, we actually have to tell it, hey, you got to go back to contacts because now we're parsing the next contact. So this will make a little bit more sense when you see the other lessons and it continue to unfold. All right, so here we go. We continue on. This is our second record. We've got the ID and the name Jane Smith. We iterate, and now I'll just go through these next ones a little quicker. We're on C4, and C4 exited. And that is it. This is another script that's running on a database that isn't part of this scenario, which I'll close promptly after this. Okay, so we've successfully parsed contacts, or have we? No, we haven't. We did something wrong here. We only have 4 contacts, and we should have 5. Charlie Brown is missing, so I've done something wrong with my logic. Let's see what I did wrong here. Okay, so if I do C+1, that's going to give it +1 before the exit loop. So I don't need the +1. So let's delete this and do this one more time. We'll parse the JSON, and there we have our 5. Okay. Well, it's okay that I make a boo-boo here and there so that you can see it and perhaps learn something from that, and realize too that logic mistakes, even as long as I've been doing FileMaker, sometimes it happens where you're just not adding right or not thinking correctly, and you're off by 1. And that's why they've created the debugger, and that's why you do it step by step, and that's just part of being human. Okay, that concludes a successful parse of customers. Thanks for joining us on this lesson. To enroll in the free complete course, click on the link in the description or visit productivecomputinguniversity.com, where you'll find both free and paid courses on today's most important topics related to the Claris FileMaker platform.